Today we're removing the lower ball joint off a T4 Transporter, a VW. It's 2003 model. Now what I've done, I've loosened the bottom ball joint bolt, I don't know if you can see it there, and just chocked it up with a bit of wood, and then by hammering over here, there's pressure on the ball joint. By hammering on that, creates like a vibration, and eventually it'll just pop down. And there we go, it's popped down to the nut. I've left the nut on just to hold it because this is under tension. So now we'll put a jack under here and just remove it. Underneath there's two, I think they're 14mm spline bit sockets, so I've got to go find one of those, and then the ball joint just pops out basically when we undo those two bolts. Now it's a little bit hard to see, but what I've done, I've taken off these two bolts on the lower ball joint and loosened the nut on the bottom of the ball joint, and then I'll put these stands on. We're lucky we've got this hoist that can lift up, but what I've done is I've lifted up this upper control arm just to free it off this lower control arm, and then basically if we take that off, it frees up the lower ball joint and we can just take it out. Got to make sure everything's supported safely. It's not going to knock the vehicle over when you're jacking it up or anything like that. And here's the new ball joint. We just replace it with that. You can see how worn I'm holding the bottom, and you can see how worn it was. I forgot to mention that first took out this big bolt that goes through if you can just see it there, it just goes through that lower control arm and disconnects the shock absorber, and on the other side it's got that sway bar, so the whole thing can move up and down. And then what I've done is I've got a bit of Rio bar and supported the top control arm. There's a little step there, you can see it. It sits on there nice and square, it's not going to slip off. And then I've just basically raised it on these two stands. That's lifted up this top control bar, which is under load, and then it frees up the bottom one so I can put in the new ball joint. See that the bolt holes on the top of the bolt on the ball joint are offset, so there is a difference. You've got to make sure it goes on the right way. Just checking it with a torch, just making sure that it's all seated properly. It's got a little step on it, so sometimes it can be misaligned. Anyway, now we're going to jack up the bottom arm so we can align these bolt holes in the shock absorber and the sway bar. What I've got is I've got a little pin on the end of my jack that locates into this little, under this arm here, just so it doesn't slip off when I'm jacking it up. And we line it up just so that bolt can go right through the shock absorber, which is this here. Goes back through that arm and holds the bottom bracket on this sway bar. Okay, we've jacked it up. Just make sure, because this is under tension, be careful where you put your fingies, and when that pin's lined up it should just slide straight in. We just have to make it go through that one as well. This vehicle, the bolt was actually facing the other way, but I always like to put the thread at the back end of the at the back of the car, so any road dirt while you're driving, it doesn't, can damage the thread and then make things a little bit more difficult to undo at a later stage. There we go, we can just lower that jack now. Everything's done up. Out of the way. And just double check our work. Everything on the ball joint sitting properly. 2 bolts that hold it up under there are done up. The bottom bolt's done up. That's on a taper, so you don't have to over tighten it. And the long bolt that goes through the shock absorber and the sway bar. When you're putting the wheel back on, you always put them on by hand first before you hit them with the rattle gun. And always tighten them up by hand. These rattle guns, because they're impacting at, I don't know what this one does, 2,900 hammers per minute. So it can over tighten them, and then later on you're going to have trouble getting it off when you've got a flat tyre or if you have to change it. Anyway, that's how we do a lower ball joint on a T4 Transporter VW. Thank you for watching.